Shall we start? Or?
Yes, I think we can start.
So. Yeah.
Okay. Let me first thank you all for meeting again with us in the second day of our meeting of the WHO Collaborating Centers. First of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Gulin Gedik. She is coordinator. Currently coordinator of the Health Workforce Development in the WHO Regional Office for EMR region. And to start our meeting, I'd like to summarize. So Mohamed, can you go and summarize what we did last day? So at least we will recap what we have.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
We discussed two themes. The first one was about, and these of course are the themes selection based on the previous survey and previous discussion among the four centers. The first one, the first area of collaboration that we agreed on is to have joint faculty development programs and online training workshops. We had a very fruitful discussion led by Prof. Gohar and facilitated by Dr. Archana. And the key points that emerged from the discussion was to initiate an online training program for faculty development to be at three levels. The level A is a basic package for medical educators containing general information for all faculty in health professional education in the region. And the four centers can participate in addition to any invited international experts with the support of the WHO EMR office. The second level was to exchange the expertise among the four centers and to exchange our areas of strength and needs regarding the faculty development programs, and that we can exchange this kind of information and start plan for joint webinars or joint programs together. The third level is to have to organize regular webinars by experts from the four centers, in addition to international experts, maybe once or twice per year, if possible. And these are some of the needs declared from based on our discussions. The next suggested steps are, the first one is to form a task force to start a quick and simple cross-sectional needs assessment for faculty development in the region. For the four centers to share a list of faculty development programs that they can provide and the faculty development programs that they need. We need to exchange this information between the four centers. The third step is to agree on the theme for our first collaborative webinar. And the fourth is to have a second meeting only for the task force to discuss the content of the basic package and how to put it into action. So this is for the first theme. I just need to have the feedback of our dear colleagues. If you have anything you would like to add or to give us feedback on. Okay. Good. The second theme is to conduct a multi-center research in health professional education. And we have discussions, very interesting discussions, and actually the time of the meeting was finished very quickly, and this is for me is an indicator for interesting discussions. Some of the areas discussed were social accountability of medical schools, the future of health professional education after COVID-19, challenges facing health professional education institutes in revising their programs after COVID-19, professionalism in health professional education. These are some of the discussion about what kind of research topics that we might participate in collaboratively. We also suggested that there should be some kind of a mechanism to guarantee the sustainability of or how to turn these research ideas into an actual multi-centric research. And the point of having poor response rates was also raised by participants, as we have very poor response rate when we send the electronic forms for institutes to give their opinion. The next step for this team was to form a committee representing the 4 centers to start working on the first multi-centric research, define the priority areas, and start taking actual steps into to make these ideas into a collaborative research. This was a quick recap of what happened in our first meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohamed. And if there is no other comments on what we have done in the first day, we can move on to the third team. And Archana, you can take over.
Thank you, Dean. A warm welcome to all. Theme 3 for today is sharing experience in technology scaffolding in health professions education. I repeat, it is sharing experience in technology scaffolding in health professions education. The technology has taken up huge space in health profession education today, including curriculum planning, curriculum implementation, curriculum mapping, evaluation, teaching, learning, and assessment. And there are more things to add to this. And I request Dr. Gohar to lead the discussion on this important theme and help us identify the high priority areas to be addressed in this theme and the strategies to be followed for support, engagement, planning, implementation, and evaluation of such initiatives, and what are the anticipated challenges and how to overcome them. I also request all the dignitaries to actively share their expertise, which will enable us to draft a plan based on your recommendation. I hand over to Dr. Gohar, and I request him to kindly lead the discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Archana, for yet another wonderful and exciting topic. May I ask how much time we have for this session?
30 minutes, sir.
We have 30 minutes. Great.
Yes.
So I'll frame it accordingly. As we have seen that one of the natural consequences of COVID-19 was the closure of health professions education institutions, not only within the EMR, but across the globe in most of the countries. So being the regional office in the EMR, our department was interested to find out what has been the pattern of closure, how educational institutions have been coping with these closure and the reopening mechanisms of medical institutions, what kind of challenges they have been facing in restoring the educational process, whether during this process there has been any loss of educational activities, or how the educational activities were modified, whether there were any modifications in the curricula, or what kind of strategies were used to not only for the purpose of teaching and learning, but for other modalities such as assessment of students, and with the special reference to how did they manage to restore or continue clinical education. So what Gulin and I did, we planned a qualitative exploratory study where we contacted around 50 institutions from almost 13 or 14 countries of the EMR region, And we have in fact written a paper that is about to be submitted for publication. It's almost ready and would be submitted in the next couple of weeks. We have also written a report that would be shared with the institutions in the EMR in due time. And some of the findings that we found that most of the there were out of 50, there were 3 or 4 institutions only who said that we did not close. And later on, they also got closed. They did not close at the time when we were conducting the survey. So almost all institutions, we can say that at one stage or the other, they got closed. And all the use of online technologies came as a very natural consequence to restore educational activities. And within that, we saw that in the beginning, there was some kind of, I would say, ad hoc use of the available resources to get the students online as soon as possible. And that's what we see the term emerging as the kind of emergency remote teaching, that is the continuation of educational activities on ad hoc basis through the use, whatever the use of available resources. That's where we have seen that the term e-learning and the term even online education, they have very broad connotations. So when we say online education, what does it actually mean? What kind of frames different institutions have been using, and how they have been able to make kind of transformational or transitionally changes during this educational experiences, where they have explored the benefits and the pros and cons of online education, and how they have been coping with them, and how do they plan to incorporate or integrate online education in a very rational manner. Here the word rational is very important, because we don't want to either overemphasize or just get carried away with the availability of online education, while the challenges of teacher training, and even before that, teacher and student training, I would say, and even before that, the challenges of available infrastructure, the challenges of appropriate transformation of educational systems through the use of appropriate learning management systems, and the cost of IT technology, etc., are some of the key issues that the countries shared with us, where the resources are definitely needed. And these resources then varied from countries, like on one spectrum, there were countries like Afghanistan and Yemen, and there are other few other countries in crisis situation like Libya and Syria, where we find out the availability of minimal infrastructure to provide online provisions of online education. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have GCC countries like Bahrain and Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, etc., where we find that online technologies are relatively advanced. The availability of IT experts is there. Even I would say relatively better quality, high-speed internet services are there, although there have been complaints from students of IT structures not supporting. So we have enormous challenges, and we need to frame our thought process around developing the strategies, where those strategies can best be used in the most rational manner to gain the advantages that we have seen through the use of online technology, and what are the best things that we can learn from here. I would end it here. I have very briefly shared with you the survey of a very small study that we managed to do, and I would still like to learn from what the participants through your country level experiences. Thank you. So let's take the opinion from 4 centers. Bahrain Center, who would share the experiences?
Yes. Initially, we took around 4 to 5 days to brainstorm about various ideas, the scenarios which were in front of us. We didn't know how long it was going to last. So initially, we had a rapid, quick fix solution to address the challenges. And later on, we realized that it was not going to end very soon. So we gradually improvised our plan, and we improvised our assessment methods. We got the softwares, we paid for the software, we got the licensed version of Zoom, exams out for assessment, and we started using Big Blue Button for our tutorials, and we used Zoom breakout rooms to conduct clinical OSCE stations. And initially we uploaded only plain PowerPoint presentations for our students. Later on, we improvised that also with audio and video. Now our anatomy department and pathology, they are taking videos of all the different specimens with explanation. So we are slowly evolving over it, and we managed to document all our efforts, and we managed to publish it in one of the journals. And we didn't stop there. We also evaluated the perception of students and faculty. We took their feedback, what they felt best about both the different modes of teaching, namely the face-to-face as well as online teaching. And we have compared and prepared the report, and that is also in the process of publication. And still there are many projects going on various aspects of teaching in various departments with respect to COVID. Thank you.
Okay, so let me have a quick question from you. What kind of response did you have from students, and how did you manage to, what kind of issues you were facing at the part of the students, and how did you manage to enhance students' interactivity and participation in educational activities?
From students, some of them faced the technical difficulties, and they also faced lack of interaction between the faculty and the students. From faculty, the main issue was students not opening their cameras during discussion, or lack of attendance from the students. And when we increased our interactivity, when the faculty started using more interaction during the sessions, we are now slowly seeing increase from student participation also. Now students are also responding, attending, and giving better feedback than before. Thank you.
Great. Are you familiar with a package called Dialed In? Anybody has experience with the package Dialed In? So this package, I can take a couple of minutes just to brief you about the package. This package have been developed by one of the companies, and they are offering the package for use. They have prepared the package keeping in view the students and with the view to enhance student interactivity. And some of the features of this package are, for example, when you for example, if you are sharing the screen with 100 students and you are showing them a PowerPoint presentation, then all 100 students, they see the same slide that you are showing them. What this package does is, when you log into Zoom, but using Dialed In, so Dialed In also plays a role in your video chat with the students. And what Dialed In does is that it provides access to all 100 students to your PowerPoint slide. So if there are 20 slides in your presentation, then all students are not bound that they must be seeing the slide that you are showing them at the same time. If some student has picked up the subject and he wants to go fast, he can scroll through and see all the slides on his own. Or if some student, he wants to spend more time on one of the slides, but you have moved on, then he can go back to the slide and spend more time into grasping those concepts. So it provides autonomy of access to the students to have the access to the slides, whatever the way they want. Then this package is providing a kind of freedom to the students, freedom, in fact, I would say to the teachers, to develop the quizzes in a very easy manner. So it helps you to generate quizzes, an appropriate number of quizzes in a very very easy manner. Developing quizzes becomes easy, and that it keeps a record of all the quizzes on how they have been attempted by the students. So if there are 100 students and the teacher is able to actually put maybe 10 quizzes or 15 quizzes in a very user-friendly manner, then at the end of the session, the package provides feedback to the students and to the teachers on individually all those 100 students, that out of the 15 quizzes, how many were actually done correctly by how many students. So that shows the interactivity of the students in the whole presentation process. And it also shows through some kind of mechanisms of if the student switches off the camera and it minimizes the screen and goes to another website and opens Google or God knows whatever and starts playing the game, it will compile a dashboard at the end of the session, and it will show to the individual students and the teachers about all 100 students on how much time they had interacted and their actual screens were open and how much time they spent on the screens. So they have developed this package keeping in view student activity and enhancing student interactivity within the very interesting package. I don't know if there are any videos available or not, but I can certainly share the details of the person who has developed the package, and you can actually have a demo from the inventor himself. You know, he's a Pakistani guy and he was presenting me all this kind of stuff being educational over at my end. Any other ideas? And
Kumar, if you allow me, do you use it for summative quizzes or summative assessment, or only formative?
You can no, not for summative assessment. It is to improve interactivity with between the teacher and student during everyday presentations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's not an assessment package, but
yes,
it is a package for enhancing teaching and learning between the teacher and the student.
So it's like a formative kind of assessment during instruction itself.
It is, you can call it assessment if you want to call it. It would fall maximum under the category of formative assessment, but I won't call it even assessment, because we don't want assessment at the end of every single lecture. Rather, this package provides you an opportunity that out of 100 students, if you ask the package, it would very easily sort you down that out of 100 students, there were a list of 20 students who spent less than 10 minutes in the actual presentation. And actually a notice can go to the student that you were not attentive or you did not interact with the teacher during the lesson. And if you wish, after, like, if the student behaves the same 3 times, then you can even send a notification to the parents of the student that, sorry, we just wish to inform you XYZ. I mean, there were options were there if you wish to avail them, all up to you.
Okay, can you please, I don't know what's the name until now. I didn't get the name. Can you write it on chat?
I can send you more details. I can share the details with you, and would be pleased to share the details of the person as well, who has actually developed the package. I think this is something spelled like this: dialed in.
Dial in. Okay.
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
I would be pleased to share more details.
Is it dial in?
Dial in or dialed in. I have written it here, but I can share the exact name and the email of the person who has developed the package, and even the emails of couple of institutions that I know of that they are using with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is it for free or for certain fees?
I don't think it's free, but I have no idea about what is the fee for the package. But once I give you the details, you can always contact the person, have a demo, and then you can check with him the fees as well.
Thank you, Professor.
We have at our end quite an experience of conducting workshops and certain courses, the healthcare system course online and through IT scaffolding. And but it's all okay if it is a didactic course. But when it comes to skill learning, especially in post-graduation, there is a lot of problem, because unless we go to the patients, we go to the hospitals, we cannot learn the skills. And moreover, the examinations, we have tried to have some sort of a simulated or virtual examination or assessment, but it is very difficult to convince the clinicians, because they have a very strong feeling that unless they see and question their candidates, they are not going to conduct that examination. So is there anything for skill examination? Thank you.
So in other words, how to strategize the psychomotor part of our educational domains in view of COVID-19.
This is the most difficult $1 million question. We've developed an online OSCE. Prof. Gohar knows about it. You attended with me once, and it was very good regarding clinical, assessing clinical reasoning, assessing communication skills, and how students take their this clinical decision making. But of course, for the psychomotor skills, we cannot do it online. And actually, the validity of the test and the reliability of our online OSCE was not bad. And we published the paper that we can share with you. But for this year, with consensus agreement, we agreed that we conduct in-campus OSCE with all the measures, the COVID-19 preventive measures taken. And it was actually very good, limited physical examination. And because there is also a limitation for conducting psychomotor skills even in training, even when our students for this year attended with precautions in the clinical sites, they couldn't have the opportunity for dealing with patients as before. So it was limited. And for the OSCE, we had some simple stations for psychomotor skills assessment, but they were also limited. So I think now with the vaccinations being available in most of the countries, I think that we will go back, and in the assessment, I think this will not be a need for, hopefully for the next few months, if the situation is as it is now.
Yeah. So any other ideas, Dr. Soha?
Has anyone experience of virtual examination which uses
no, we have the same experience like Dr. Mohamed Hany in Bahrain, but we didn't have online exams. We had about we had them. We had this. We postponed the exam till we shifted our how you can say we shifted the exam till it was reasonable. I mean, the time was okay to bring students back to the campus, but we made it on. We minimized the sessions. We made it a smaller groups, and we took all the precautions. But we were lucky because before the COVID, immediately just few months before, we were preparing our students and staff for online unified exam all over Egypt for medical students on the level of the third years and the 6th year students, and we were among the faculties who were included in the trial. It was a trial that was not established later on, but it was we were included in the trial. So we already had our staff trained on online teaching and exams that were written exams. I mean, in form of MCQ. So when COVID came and we had to do a lot of our sessions online, which also I know you are aware that our educational system is not a traditional one. So we already work on small groups as the small classes and small field groups and skill lab groups. All these were somehow we were able to shift to online activities. But of course, when it came to assessment, that was very difficult. Do you have any questions concerning anything?
So what about Dr. Siraj, if you allow me, just since Dr. Soha is continuing, so let's ask her more questions. My question to you, Dr. Soha, what did you do with the practical clinical training of the students? How much did it suffer, or what strategies did you use to continue practical clinical training of students?
During the time that there were strict measures against COVID, that it was suspended and postponed. Then before the exams, the assessment of the students, when the restrictions were a little bit lightened, we had a crash course for the students. They were brought to the campus, but in smaller groups and taking all the precautions needed for infection control. So that's what happened, but we were not able to do it, of course, any practical online training. But we also have our practical training for the first 3 years is mainly the skill lab and the field visits. They work in the primary healthcare unit. So that, of course, in the primary healthcare unit, this activity was suspended. But with the skill lab, the videos which the students see, they could see it. They were uploaded in their Facebook groups or WhatsApp or the groups, student-related groups, and so they can see it. But there was no chance for them to practice it, of course. So there were revision session before the assessment for these years. For the years who made the main part of the practical activities is in the hospital. I'm sorry, located in the hospital. This was completely suspended, and then as I said, when the restrictions were lightened, the children were allowed to go back to the hospital, but in smaller groups. So we were working around we extended the day. Usually the regular day in the faculty starts, let's say, from 8:30 or 9 till 3 or 4. Then after the students were back to the campus, the days we work in 2 shifts, a morning shift and afternoon shift. And even for the assessments, for the written exams, we made part of them were online and the other were done in campus, but with also a morning shift and afternoon shift. And that, of course, increased the load for the staff because they have to do different, for example, for the MCQ exams, they have to do several forms for the morning shift and then for the afternoon shift, and they have to work extra hours because the classes, there were classes in the morning and classes in the afternoon and so on. But it worked, and so far, and now everything is back somehow to normal, but still we have extended working hours to avoid the crowding of the students. And for lab, for the basic science lab, these were done online because it's easy to, if they have slides or something, we can see some PowerPoint.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will get back to Dr. Siraj. Once Dr. Siraj finishes his comments, then we will go to Dr. Wael to learn how did they do in Sudan. Dr. Siraj, please continue.
I was just wondering if somebody has an experience with the evolving patient scenario with simulated patient, or the also called unfolding case scenarios, in which a scenario is given, maybe on the laptop, and the candidate is asked to do the history and physical examination of the patient. And as the candidate is doing the history or physical examination, the examiner is responding to his various maneuvers. And this ultimately leads to very crucial things. For example, if he says that I'm auscultating the chest, and now the examiner says that on auscultation, these are the findings. So in this manner, there is evolving scenarios, they go on. And these evolving scenarios can be very useful, both as for the teaching purpose, as well as for assessment. And the Canadians, they are using these scenarios for their exam as well.
Right.
Yes, please.
Any other comments subsequent to Dr. Siraj, or we switch to Dr. Wael? Okay. Let's take experiences from Dr. Wael. How did they do in Sudan?
Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Well, actually, we started the e-learning, use of technology in e-learning relatively recently. This is only our second semester in using e-learning in Sudan, in Jazeera University. We use both synchronous and non-synchronous methods for teaching. And really our experience is very, very much similar to what occurred in, or what was adopted in Suez Canal University, almost similar. We used to have our students for practical and bedside teachings as form of crash courses by the end of the courses. We were not able to do such simulation or virtual types of learning in teaching, in clinical teaching. And also we don't have any experience in examination regarding clinical examination, assessment, or OSCE, or other types of assessment. And I think this is one of the areas we need your advice and support for other centers in that particular area, in assessment using virtual or e-learning. But otherwise, it's quite similar to what occurred in Suez Canal University. If you have any questions.
For how long did your institution remain closed?
The first time we were closed almost 5 months, from March to August, completely closed down.
How did you manage? Were there any delays in the completion of the academic year, and how did you manage all that?
Well, one of the solutions was the e-learning itself, because the months that were lost, we were unable to compensate for our students, really. But after we started e-learning, one of the first problems, as we all know, maybe in Sudan more, the acceptance of the idea of having e-learning itself was a problem among students and staff as well. So when we break this fear, and actually we start, the students became more excited and more engaged, and we did a lot of workshops and orientation sessions. And after that, we were able to save time. I mean, if you had, for example, a module of 8 weeks, it could be done in 5 weeks, because students have plenty of time. You upload the lectures, and they download these lectures and in their suitable time, and you spare a lot of time. So the rest of the semester, the last semester was much shorter than the usual semesters. I think this was one of the benefits of using technology and e-learning.
Excellent.
But still we have some time lost we couldn't compensate for. Absolutely. Actually, unfortunately. But I think the good thing that we gained the acceptance of the staff and the students, and every day we are learning something new, and we are going further, inshallah.
So we have 3 hands. First, Dr. Archana, then Valerie, and then Hany.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Gohar.
Okay.
I just want to add a few things here. In AGU, we are using a software called DXR Clinician, which is a virtual patient management software, which allows us, in a similar way, what Dr. Siraj just now shared with us, unfolding of different scenarios based on how a student starts and proceeds. So this we are using for past few years. And the second one is we also have a simulation center where the initiative is now focused on having a standardized patient pool, simulated patients program, where a great deal of training is going on, and inshallah we'll be starting it very soon. So I think with this SPs we'll be able to have a better assessment of some of the psychomotor skills where we can follow with the COVID-19 protocol. Recently also we used SPs where we did the COVID rapid test before they were allowed inside the campus, and they were used for exams. We are looking at it using this in a broader way in near future. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, Valerie, please go ahead.
Thank you. Really interesting conversation to see what everybody's been doing. And internationally, I think it's probably a similar experience. I suppose, Prof. Gohar, I'm just, what is the purpose that we're trying to solve here? I'm interested in the AGU have gone back to face-to-face assessments. And I think as we move out of COVID, which I hope we are doing, we need to be thinking really quite clearly what we want to achieve as we move forward. What is the purpose of this discussion? How are we going to move forward from COVID? But there's some interesting things, Dr. Wali. I appreciate the learning quicker, but I think it's the quality of learning. And I've got a master's student who's looking in Lebanon about the quality of learning during COVID, and the students were very demotivated. We may have think they were learning, but it seems they were lonely. They were very frightened of COVID. They were very frightened of touching patients, frightened COVID would impact on their families. And what came out of it was a sense of just that they weren't motivated to learn. And so a word of caution, if we think we can take everything online, I think some things can go online as we move out of COVID, but we need to move out really carefully and just really think what we mustn't lose of what we had before. So I just think the purpose of the discussion is important, and perhaps Mohamed could say why they've gone back to face-to-face. I was doing something in Belfast yesterday, and I think they've decided in their curriculum they'll keep the lectures on the line and some of their case-based learning in Teams online, but that a lot of it should go back to face-to-face. So I just want to be clear about that. And Dr. Wali, you nodded your head. I mean, they may seem to have learned in 5 weeks, but how well did they learn? And what was going on? Because it's been a very frightening experience for students and tutors. And I think we need to understand it more rather than just think of the technology.
You are right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, actually, yes, you are right.
I totally agree as well.
Yes,
Okay,
that,
can go.
I totally agree. Students their anxiety levels are growing as they are moving from the first year under COVID to the second year under COVID, and they have the feeling that they are not gaining what they should gain, especially in the clinical skills, and they are frightened by this. And I'm also talking about my students in Egypt because I'm supervising the department back in Egypt. Still doing work with them. So I agree with Valerie. And all of you why we moved quickly as fast as we can to the face-to-face in examination, because we thought that important things were missing, and we were really not comfortable with we use all the advanced technology like softwares for written exams and the online clinical exam, which was a big hit, but we are not convinced that we had doubts regarding the cheating, and we are not convinced that all the important skills or competencies are assessed. Going back to the idea of the purpose of this discussion, I think that it's also coming with certain steps for collaboration. Maybe expanding the expertise of exchanging the expertise of the 4 centers, and then responding to the needs of countries in the region regarding the technology issues. I assume that many countries of the region will still spend 1 more year under the COVID strict regulation, as the vaccinations are not fulfilling the needs of these countries. And I think that the alternative solutions, and keep them alternative solutions, technology-related solutions, will still be used at least for 1 more year. Then we go to the stage of what technology should remain after COVID, and what activities, learning and assessment activities, should go back to the regular face-to-face encounters. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Hany. Any other questions or comments?
I would like to add a comment, because the word demotivated is also something that I noticed with our students and our staff. And I guess this is a huge challenge that we are facing in medical education teaching as a whole thing. How we can, we should really focus, or at least this should get our attention in the coming period. How can we make our students believe in the value of what they are doing, especially when with the beginning of COVID, it was there was a lot of how can you say, there was a lot of stress on the medical staff in general, and that was not really appreciated in the beginning among the community or on the authority level. So somehow they were depressed and demotivated, and beside the anxiety and the fear of COVID itself, they felt that okay, we are doing all these efforts, and then we are not really appreciated, so they lost interest in things. So I don't know how we can work back or bring them back in believing on the value of what we do.
If you allow me, yeah.
Yes, please. Yes,
Gohar,
please.
yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to respond to Prof. Valerie. Yes, I think one of the main problems or issues in concern is the quality of learning the learners are actually receiving during the pandemic and the e-learning process. And so in our experience, we were always in contact with students through students coordinators of different modules and staff coordinators. So we managed to on daily basis to see how students are doing and receiving their feedback. Also, we started the e-learning slowly. Actually, it was not very suddenly. in Sudan, like any maybe a lot of countries in the region and in Africa. And also maybe the situation in Sudan, like in Africa, is not that very much similar to Europe or the Western countries. In that, yes, we had a shutdown and restrictions, but yet actually people were there were no that real restrictions on grounds, except for the Faculty of Medicine, of course, and the hospitals and so. So we were able also, doing all our precautions, to also to allow clinical training in hospitals for limited periods with restrictions. So students were not totally devoid from clinical teaching. So they were still confident in the system, and maybe we didn't face a lot of problems like fear or maybe depression or problems you might see in countries where they were complete shutdowns and complete e-learning all through the system, which it's not very similar to what actually happened or happening in Sudan and Africa.
I think that's really interesting, Dr. Wajid. These students in Lebanon, though, were also going into hospital, but they were frightened to touch patients in case they picked up COVID, and they were frightened to bring in COVID from the hospital to their families. So it was pretty complicated, as I'm sure you appreciate. I can tell your face, you're a very compassionate man. So I'm sure you appreciate it. There were lots of fears about being in the hospital as well, which was interesting. It may be quite different in Sudan, but this was just what my students finding from her qualitative research in Lebanon.
Actually, Prof. Valerie, we were more frightened or concerned about our senior colleagues. So we keep them away. And still, unfortunately, we lost 3 of our senior colleagues, but most of our senior colleagues were kept away from teaching, from direct teaching, from going to hospitals, most of this period, until fortunately we have been all vaccinated, all the staff and
Right.
many of our students now, and still vaccination is going on. But the most fear was on actually for the staff rather than the young students.
Yeah. How interesting. I just beginning to think that perhaps before, as Mohamed says, we're moving out of COVID, but if you've got a year, perhaps it's worth looking across the collaboration of how everybody did react and how their learners react, and use that information to try and work out what can stay online and what can go face to face. It might be that there's some similarities across. I don't know, Mohamed, what do you think? It was just a thought. And I can see Dr. Gedik wants to come in, so I'll shut up now.
Yeah, let Dr. Mohamed respond to your query, and then Dr. Gulin can complete.
Yes, I agree. It's a good idea. Let's hear from Dr. Gedik.
Go ahead, Gulin.
Thank you very much. It is really interesting discussion to learn the experience. And as Gohar mentioned, we have been looking at it, and also we have done a quick study on that last autumn. But now we are seeing the updates over the time, and it is really encouraging and good. And while actually I was wondering, you said that you have moved to online learning in the last 2 semesters. So that means last year you were not able to. What happened to students? Is there a delay in training or how it happened? Or you said that you also compensated some of it by faster training. But my main point is actually, I think Valerie has just touched upon what I wanted to say, so I can be very brief. 2 things, and actually both of them as Valerie just told. I think we are learning what is happening, how we are addressing the challenges of this time through virtual training, online assessments, etc. But still, we don't know about the quality of training. And since we are all together, I think this is an opportunity, and we can plan a study together to look at the quality of training. What are the gaps happening in this cohort of students? I'm specifically referring to this cohort of students. And what is happening to them? Because that, if we can assess that, then that will help us to have some strategies how we can address that in the coming years when we are over COVID. And also this will help us in shaping the future education, because everybody is saying we will not go back to the good old days. There will be change in the medical education, even when we move, when everything is over. So even that can guide it. So that's one thing which I really would like to plan together in advance. It will not be something maybe we will do today, but maybe in a couple of months or next year, I think we should think about to look at. And how do we address this? Thank you very much.
Any further response to what Gulin has said? Before we close this discussion and we move to the next one, it has already
just to
been
say,
past 30.
I'm Gulin, music to my ears. Hence my reaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's already past time. We have passed the time allocated for this session, and let's hand over to Dr. Archana for the next session.
Thank you, Dr. Gohar, and all the dignitaries for valuable input. To summarize, all the 4 centers, we shared our experiences, the challenges what we faced during the COVID-19 adaptation, and the final focus of the research is going to be the quality of e-learning or the training of our medical graduates in terms of clinical skills to be studied in this cohort of students, and to assess the gaps and how effectively we can go ahead in this area, and also to share our expertise of the 4 centers and help each other in terms of e-learning and technology, what we all have, and share with each other. These are the things which I think has come out of this discussion. Maybe you can add to this, any of you, if you want to add any steps to move forward, the future steps of all 4 collaborating centers together. Thank you.
I think this is fine. And once we receive the summaries in written form, we can always add on to them. Let's move on to the next session because we're running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Hany, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to add that now we have good experience. For example, our online clinical exam, we have evaluated the exam. We know what's working and what cannot be, what we cannot rely on. So I am suggesting that, for example, the example that Prof. Siraj pointed at in clinical teaching, the unfolding of the scenarios. We've used also something similar in the assessment, which went under the model of structured Viva exams in some of the medical specialties. So what I'm suggesting is, from the expertise that we have, we can still conduct very to the point training sessions to interested institutions regarding the utility of each method, either in teaching or in assessment, in the form of webinars. So this is another maybe practical step, if you agree on this, and if there is a need for sharing experience of what we've already experienced, and we have good evaluation of the pros and the cons of such methods.
Thank you, Professor Hany. I now hand over to Dr. Hany Atwa to proceed with the next theme. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Archana.
Could I just ask, I thought we were going to have a break. Could I just ask for a 2-minute comfort break before we reconvene? I'd come straight off another meeting. So I've been on since 9 o'clock. So just 2 minutes, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have shared my WhatsApp in the chat. If you can, using this WhatsApp number, if you can send me a WhatsApp, I can share with you the contact of Mr. Shaukat, who is who introduces, dialed in to me, you know. Apparently, he is the one who was involved in the development of the package. And then you can request him to give you a demo of how it works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I also agree with what was said by Mohamed Hany, his last words, because I think what we need really is advices and help, support, particularly in the assessment using e-learning and virtual methods. I do agree with that, yes. Mrs. Kumar, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Wael. I have noted it down. Thank you.
Yes, assessment is one big area. You know, there are multiple problems with these online assessment methods. And I was really glad to see how Arabian Gulf University has innovated, and they have used some of the assessment technologies to make advancements in doing all these assessment things. But the thing is that all these technologies, even their rational use, it requires a lot of even teacher training, not only student training, but teacher training. And then it requires a kind of backup support on the part of infrastructure that is available there, especially in far-flung areas of, say, for example, Sudan or even Pakistan and Afghanistan and all these countries. So the answer may not be straightforward whether these assessment methods can be applied in various contexts and various scenarios. Their application has to be contextualized with a very carefully analyzed situation analysis of a particular country, whether their infrastructure can support the assessment system that is under discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gohar. Now Dr. Valerie is back. I request Dr. Hany Atwa to take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Archana. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. This is Hany Salem. Now we are left with the last theme in our agenda, which is on collaboration and programs leading to a degree in health professions education. This is like, again, it's a group discussion to point out the ways or the chances for having joint programs between the 4 centers, programs in health professional education that lead to a degree in HPE. Before we discuss, please allow me to share the results of the survey we distributed to all the centers. So this is the area which is collaboration and programs leading to a degree in HPE. The responses of the different centers are as follows. This is the first one, the center in Pakistan, College of Physicians and Surgeons, Pakistan. Actually, in general, all these centers agree on this actually, and the Pakistan center say that depending on the strength of each center, sustainability of arrangements involved, and approval of the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Pakistan, they can contribute in this initiative. Al Jazeera EDC said that they have like established postgraduate studies in health professional education, both face-to-face and through distance learning. But again, they are ready to participate for the CRD in the Faculty of Medicine University in Egypt. They said that they can provide staff and they can participate in program construction, program design of this HPE programs. In the Bahrain Center, CMMS AGU, actually here in Bahrain we have our own Master of Health Professional Education. Maybe now it's on hold actually since a few years, but it's in the process of being like, let's say, resurrected. But we are ready to participate in joint programs in health professions education. So these are the responses. I think this may help in facilitating the discussion. And now I provide my dear Professor Valerie to lead the discussion around this point. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Hany, and that was really helpful to know what each centre. I think it would be nice to hear from each centre, but I suppose first when I looked at the topic and was thinking about it before the meeting, was there two questions in my mind. What would be the purpose of collaborating? And the second question is, what type of degree are you aiming for? I mean, there are different levels of degree, aren't they? In my head, I have a postgraduate certificate or a diploma. Is it in medical education you want the degree to be? Or I just probably would help me to know, or perhaps for us all to share, what do we mean by a higher degree and what would each country want to achieve by it?
Actually, it's not specified as a certificate or higher diploma or master. It's just the idea was to have like a program. We can agree between the four centers can agree on the shape of this program or the scope actually of this program, but we didn't specify the what will be the program actually.
Okay, so perhaps that's a good place to start. I mean, what are we trying to solve? Because there are a lot of degrees around the place. As CPSC run a lot, and as you say, in AGU you've got your own degree. So what problem are you trying to solve across the region? Or I don't know whether Gulin, you could tell us from the WHO perspective what you think this might solve.
Okay, may I invite Dr. Gohar from the WHO to give his input on this?
Well, from WHO perspective, certainly we would be most pleased to promoting health professions, education, whatever the way applicable and possible. We would love to collaborate with different agencies to facilitate the process of enhancing health professions education in the region. But since WHO is not a degree awarding agency, so we are not in a position to get involved into the award of degrees or something, but certainly we can facilitate the process. But probably our analysis would start with the kind of very careful situation analysis on what exactly is needed and how best all the four collaborating centers can pitch in to achieve something. Because at the moment, the four centers, probably all of them, they are offering masters in health professions education. So it means you have quite a good level of expertise available that can be shared, but it can be shared to achieve what? What kind of program it would be, what could be the outcome of the program, and how best it can facilitate the process of enhancing health professions education in the region. So that's probably the critical question to be addressed.
And that's really helpful. And would it need to be accredited by an institution? Validated by an institution?
Certainly, it needs to be accredited by an institution or more than one institution. These are the modalities that would come into the process once we start thinking about on what should be the duration of the program. This is in case if the centers think that they can pitch in and there is the possibility of having a program that can help in improving health professional education situation in the region.
Thank you. Gulin.
Can I speak?
I'm sorry, Gulin has got a hand up, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, please. I can speak afterwards.
Okay, right. Off you go, Dr. Siraj.
The purpose of WHO, to my mind, seems to be to strengthen the various MHP programs being conducted in the 4 countries. And this can be done by sharing our experiences. For example, our center is working on TORs which relate to understanding assessment in EMR region and understand the use of ICT in EMR. So we can cooperate with each other, we can collaborate with each other in different areas, and then we can share our experiences, share our expertise for the and thus contribute into the master's program of each country. So it will be a joint venture which we will be complementing each other. The degrees of masters, they are the domain of each country. They will continue to have their own rules and regulations for that. But with this collaborative activity, we can strengthen these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Gulin?
I think Siraj made a good point, and also Valerie, I thank you for opening this discussion, because that was my question and I saw this on the agenda as well. I mean, what do we want to achieve with this session? Because yes, we would like to, it is good to strengthen capacities in the region, in different, but we don't need a one training. And already we have similar such trainings in different countries. And we are in a world globalization, etc. And each country has their own needs, standards. So I don't think we need to go for something common or developing these type of programs are really in the domain of educational institutions, not in WHO. So it is in the domain of this. But as Dr. Siraj mentioned, I think that's a very important point, and it is the benefit of this group, this collaboration, how we can strengthen the existing programs, how we can, if there are gaps, how we can strengthen those gaps. I'm not saying that there are gaps, but by collaboration, if there are gaps, that can be strengthened. So I think what we can discuss here is how we can continue to share experiences, what mechanisms, what structure of sharing experience, and how it can contribute to further improve these existing programs. And so I think we really have to be realistic and achievable. And also we know that, I mean, we are in the 21st century. The education is completely different from the past. And I think independence, freedom gives innovation and more introduction new approaches. So I think we should keep the space and room for that.
I think, and that's so wise. And just having validated, been working with various universities, every university has their own requirements and their rules and regulations. So I think it would be really hard to get one program that was validated by a collaborative program validated by, I think we are where we are. We've got four countries, all with different processes. But so what are we trying to solve? Is there a problem with those master's programs? They're usually pretty heavily validated and quality assured. So is there a problem? I mean, it seems to me we've got many other areas we want to work on. I'm sorry, I'm being very pragmatic, but what are we trying to solve? And would it be better doing the other three initiatives of looking at how we move out of COVID? Are we worried about the quality of what these masters give? Is there anything else that's needed more? Sorry, I'm a new girl on the block. I'm just trying to understand, what needs strengthening, or are they not good enough already? Sorry, that's a bit.
What are the challenges? Maybe we can ask that question, so that may lead to that.
So it's a bit pragmatic, but there's an awful lot to be done. Is it worth doing?
Can I respond to it?
Oh, yes, please. Yes, please.
You know that these programs may not have any gap, but we need to infuse new blood into these programs, innovations into these programs. And everybody in different countries is experiencing a different context and different culture. And they are taking initiatives in 3 earlier areas. And these 3 early areas, initiatives, can also enrich the MHP programs as well. The sharing of those experiences in 3 areas, 3 initiatives, can also enrich the MHP programs as well. Thank you.
Other views from the other 3 regions?
Yes,
Dr.
can
Wali,
I?
do you want to comment?
Dr. Wael, okay.
Okay. Hany?
I just wanted that to say that this is maybe a meeting of a process that we've been a series of meetings and activities and surveys we've been conducting. What will be added? I think joining the expertise of the 4 centers will add value to the current established health professional education qualification programs. We've conducted a literature review of the published publications from each of the centers, and we have conducted a survey and discussions. And for example, if I am going to have a module about in my master's or health professional education certificate about community-oriented learning or community-based learning and social accountability, I will invite a colleague from Al Jazeera to be participating in conducting this. I think he will add value because they have more experience than ours, and he will be well received by the candidates. Suez Canal, for example, can add to the interactive teaching and problem-based learning. We can add to the maybe technology parts. Each institute we can use the strength already available in each of the centers to strengthen all the programs. So we can just have some kind of exchange of faculty, invite faculty to collaborate in improving the quality of the provided programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Hany. Archana, you had your hand up. Have you taken it down? Do come in.
Yes, I agree with Professor Hany. I wanted to say a similar thing. Maybe in the existing curriculum of MHPE, we can add a module of whatever we have identified so far, the gaps to be addressed. This can become a module by itself in the program, like using technology effectively for assessment, or how to use SPs, the protocol for standardizing the standardized patients. This can form a module of the MHPE program, which can be an add-on to the existing program. The gaps which we have identified in past 2 days can be an added module. Thank you.
You are muted, Professor Valerie.
I'm sorry, Dr. Hany. I think that sounds a good idea, building on what we've done over the 2 days. But Dr. Hany, please come in.
So I think now that all of us agree that it's not the solution for our case is not having a new program, new joint program, but actually it's like exchanging faculty between the different programs, exchanging faculty in the needed areas, as the colleagues said and Professor Mohamed said, that we can exchange faculty according to the area needed in a specific program. So not having a brand new program, because this will it will be difficult to be validated or accredited by a specific agency or a specific body in the EMR region in general, but each program is accredited by its own center or school. It can be run by people from inside and outside, outsourcing people from other centers to cover the other points.
Thank you, Dr. Hany. Dr. Wale, did you want to come in, or Dr.
Yes, thank you. Just a few words, practical points. I think building upon what have been said already, sharing experience is very important for us to learn from each other and to improve our programs. I think one of the most important areas in sharing experience is we all know from time to time, periodically, we need to review and to reform our programs. That's an area where we can share our experience and also to get our programs accredited in like World Federation of Medical Education and so on. So this is an important area for collaboration and sharing experiences. Another point is we can also help each other in providing supervisors. We have different contexts, different experiences. So why not we list our available supervisors to get joint supervision from the 4 centers or more to supervise our candidates doing their master's degree or PhD degrees. Also, we can plan to list or to list areas for research to be done as a joint project work involving more than a candidate, MSc or PhD or MSc candidates in more than one center, or most of the centers. We can, like we do, looking for a certain area from different views, as we sometimes do in our agreed upon plans by WHO. So why not to mention or to list some interesting areas in the region and in a form of a project that can be part of the thesis or the dissertation held by a number of master candidates. Also, I think one of the important areas, as mentioned by Dr. Hany, is Mohamed Hany, the research. We can also help each other in doing research, as mentioned already, in certain areas. And yet, I think there is a place for newer programs like leadership, for example, or fellowships that could be from the start formed jointly. So thank you.
That's excellent. You're taking us